John, congratulations on the film. You not only wrote it, directed, and also you played the leading characters. The leading characters. Sorry. Tell us about a little about the story. In a way, it's like a story of friendship that is really rough in a way, or how would you put it?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's sort of because the material is based in theater, which is by nature tends to be more provocative and try to sort of challenge the audience. In that vein, the movie is as well, where it's sort of like an unfiltered look at these guys and in this scenario, and kind of not pulling any punches and not creating sort of a spoon-fed utopic version of the world, but rather kind of just thrusting the viewer into a very rough, flawed environment to sort of take this roller coaster ride with these characters.
I love the relationship between the three characters in Crystal. There's
Yeah.
a great it's a great family in a way, lovely family with dark sides like every family. Could you talk a little about the relationship with Crystal and what she symbolizes? I think she keeps
Sure.
them together.
Yeah. Listen, around the time I wrote the play, my daughter was pretty young, and that the sort of emotion of that sparked a lot of feelings when you look at this little girl, and then as a guy who how in certain, like certainly the environment I grew up in, how guys talk about women. So seeing this little girl and how much I deeply loved her and being sort of caught in those two worlds, that sort of dynamic was the inspiration for writing the play and the movie as well. But at the same time, to really show the full picture of that, and that, the love of this girl who they all orbit around, and as much they don't, the story is sort of them seeing how their behavior affects the world and how that affects her. But there's no question that when the men of this movie are around women, and they're sort of at their most content, they're sort of the best versions of themselves, that brings them out. And Crystal certainly brings the best out of these guys and gets who they are, but that she's the heart of the movie and she's the heart of the relationship for them.
For me, it's very surprising what happens without saying what happened. I never expected that. I mean, they get together for a barbecue, but then the whole thing changes. I thought that was a very smart twist in a way because it takes you to a totally different territory.
Well, good. I appreciate that. I mean, listen, I think, sometimes with art, you really have to be provocative in order to make people feel something. That's what I look for. Not always. Sometimes I just want to check out and watch something that's not super challenging, but a lot of times I like to roll up my sleeves and really dig in. And I felt that, creating a story that had a twist like that, and the way it happens would simulate what a lot of the characters are going through, where it kind of shocks you, and to sort of underscore that concept of what would you do in that situation, and really make it personal.
The acting is very intense and very believable. How did you accomplish having directing all these guys and yourself into this plot?
It's a great question. I think the best thing I did across the board was, hire the best people. And, John Bernthal and I, who are, best friends in real life, we had that chemistry, and, I'm a huge fan of his acting. So that was there. And then Shea Wiggum came in, who I've come very close to. We rehearsed the movie like a play. Most of the actors are theater trained. So I knew it would have that, it would all fit in that world. Theater actors are trained to listen and not just act on the line, but to just be present and to be real, and to feed off one another. So it really was the biggest step of that was casting the right actors, and then having the time and the patience to really let them discover the characters, so that when you're there, they're empowered to make creative decisions. And the apparatus of filmmaking is not guiding them, but rather the performances are guiding the filmmaking. That's how this movie was made.
Could you describe the movie? We're going to use your description to do a little segment for the. So if you can describe a small engine repair.
Sorry, you broke up there for a second, buddy. Just back up. You want me to give you a description of the movie?
Yes, please.
Okay, so Small Engine Repair is a very darkly comedic and hard-hitting, dramatic story about these childhood friends who revolve around their shared love of the Frank's the lead character's daughter, and it's, you know, a deep dive into their relationship, and they, through one really dark and brutal night, their friendship and sort of their morality is tested because of something that happens that I'm not going to spoil.
Right, that's cool. So listen, were you exploring the masculinity as a toxic quality, quote unquote?
You know, I didn't set out with the term toxic masculinity in my head. I felt like I wanted to have a very truthful, brutally honest look at these things, and I tried to show what it's like being a modern guy in this environment, for both the beauty and the darkness, and really just show a full portrait of it. And certainly there are elements of you know, toxicity, but there's also some elements of beauty. So I felt, to be truthful, you had to capture all of it and let the audience take away what they may.
The mother symbolizes the, I don't know, totally responsibility, non-responsible at all.
Yeah, look, I think at the end of the day, when you write characters, perform characters, you should never judge them. And I would look at the Karen character, and she's certainly a force of nature, and she certainly is like a, you know, a shot of adrenaline every time she's on screen. But ultimately, I think she's trying to do the best that she can in every given circumstance. And she certainly is a fighter. And it's her sort of fighting spirit that ultimately redirects the ship. I mean, when she shows up at the end, she affects the plot in such a profound way that, again, just creating all these chemicals and putting them in a room together and seeing what happens. But yeah, I think the nature of this film is sort of subverting some of these tropes, and having, and in this case, it's the woman who doesn't really have her shit together, and the man has to raise the daughter. And that's rare, but it's not like it doesn't happen. But that sort of dovetailed into the themes that I wanted to explore.